Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians, lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. Join me as always, Mr. MAGA Jesse. What are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, we got some good stuff lined up. Good to be here. I see we already got Tucker 91, Chad Weber, Crucified 1993, BDC 1450, Truth Wins in MN. So appreciate all you guys tuning in. We are going to be breaking down Peggy Flanagan, our lieutenant governor who is now running for U.S. Senate. We'll be going into all of the details surrounding her and her crazy leftist radical ideology. We'll be discussing Wisconsin, where they want to get rid of pronouns. They want to replace the word mother and father. So we'll have to break all of that down, tell you guys all of what's going on there. We'll be discussing the anti-grassroots bill that we have previously discussed and how it has been retracted by several legislators. And we'll be talking about what exactly is in that bill. And finally, we will wrap up with a GOP House bill.
All right. Thank you to our great sponsors today, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. If you're buying a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com. Also brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Run the dials, as always, Mr. Deep State himself, Dawson. How goes it, Dawson?
Going okay. We are managing it.
Gotcha. We are managing it, that's for sure. All right, let's get right into it. So what has it been, 2 weeks since Tina Smith? Oh my God, Dawson, I totally forgot to bring this up earlier. You didn't respond to my message in the thread last night, did you?
About Tammy Baldwin?
Yeah. Okay, Dustin, before we even get into this is just funny. So Tina Smith, she announced that she was going to not run for another term. She is the junior senator in Minnesota. I don't know how I send this to you, Dawson. It's in the Truth Hurts thread.
I can pull it up on my
It was a screenshot. Oh, you know what? I know what to do. Go to Twitter real quick and just type in Tina Smith. Senator, it's Senator Tina Smith. So she announces 2 weeks ago that she's not going to run, and this was already going to be a competitive seat. At least that's my read.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse, you agree with that?
Yeah, I think Republicans were already seeing her as a weak opponent, so I think there was a opportunity either way, but with her resigning, creates even more buzz and leverage for Republicans.
Mm-hmm. All right, go back up to the top real quick, Dawson. Okay, yeah, that's the right one. All right, scroll down. You're going to see a picture of Elon Musk right there.
Yeah.
So literally, Dawson said, I can't remember if you said this on air. You're like, you didn't even know who she was, right? You knew who Amy Klobuchar was. You didn't know this was the other senator from Minnesota. And you go, she looks like that other lady with the haircut. Literally, your joke is true. Senator Tina Smith tweets out yesterday, "That's Tammy Baldwin, not me. You can keep." She's referencing Fox News getting a picture of her wrong. Mm-hmm. They're showing Tammy Baldwin from Wisconsin, and says, "That's Tammy Baldwin, not me. You can keep track of all hundreds of white men, but it's the 28 women in the Senate that trips you up." No, it's the fact that Dawson's right. You all look the same. And by the way, can you even distinguish amongst them when it comes to voting and like how radical they are?
Yeah, I mean, definitely not. There's definitely no difference between Tina Smith and Tammy Baldwin. And, I mean, that picture highlights it perfectly. And obviously, Fox News should probably do a better job to make sure that they got the right person on the screen. But you can't really blame them. Even as politicos, I would have not thought that was Tammy Baldwin on a first look. You know, just the first look, I would probably assume that they got it right. So really, I can see how Fox News made that mistake.
Yeah, honestly... it says I saw this before I would have just saw that article. I feel like I would have got it, but maybe that's just because I've always hovered between Wisconsin and Minnesota politics. So, But yeah, isn't that funny, Dawson? Did you see that last night?
Yeah, Gregory Eno says, "Is Tina even sure that's her?" And Napkin 8 says, "She even joked about their similarities." I haven't seen that before, but if Tina Smith has joked about how her and Tammy Baldwin are so similar, then would it be any surprise that her pictures are going to get mixed up?
I know. Okay, so anyhow, she's retiring, and her reason is that she wants to be with family. I don't doubt that's true, actually, to be honest with you on it. But she definitely wasn't going to have an easy route. She still was the favorite. Now the seat's wide open, and Well, we had the one confirmed. No, is Adam Schwartz a legit candidate?
Yeah, he's
official?
confirmed.
Okay, so, and by the way, it doesn't sound like he is. You got to get the read that he's not wanting to come on the show, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I offered it up to him, and I don't know. He's dragging his feet for some reason. So if you're a supporter of Adam Shorzy, maybe you need to connect with him and tell him that people want to see him here on The Truth Hurts. And, considering that we've had Royce White on, it would just be great to be able to hear from all of these candidates here that are running.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Adam Schwartz. I'm going to give him a nice interview. Like, what do you have to fear? So hopefully he connects with us and comes on the show. Otherwise, yeah, we had Royce White on the two official candidates on the Republican side. Now, from what I understand, Tina Smith. Now I'm doing it with Peggy Flanagan. Peggy Flanagan's the only confirmed candidate on the Democrat side. Legitimate. I'm sure there's one of those Jack Sparrow types that are still going to run. But I think she's the only official person in at this point. Is that correct?
Well, I'll break that down. There
let's
is
go to the
another
article.
person, but yeah. So, go ahead and pull up the article, Dawson, because Peggy Flanagan, people want to know who Peggy Flanagan really is when we, there's all this news surrounding her, but even though she's been the lieutenant governor, it doesn't seem that people actually know who she really is and what she's really about. So there you can see a couple of lovely pictures of her. She looks like a tranny. She wore that out at some Pride festival or something. Once I discovered those pictures, I knew they had to make it in here. So,
by the way, I thought they didn't like to go by the name Tranny, and then on Kill Tony last night, a tranny was on and called herself a tranny.
Black people are allowed to call themselves the N-word.
Well, that person was also black, too, and did refer to himself in the N-word.
I guess that's why then.
Yeah.
But so with useless Senator Tina Smith resigning, Minnesota's open U.S. Senate seat for the 2026 election has created a massive opportunity and is garnering national attention. While Minnesota has tilted blue throughout the last few election cycles, this race may not necessarily be a slam dunk for the Democrats. Radical leftist Peggy Margaret Flanagan, that's her real name, Margaret, is the incumbent lieutenant governor of our state who has become best known for wearing a shirt that seemingly threatens people with violence if they do not feed into the woke gender delusions and support for mutilating children and blocking their puberty. While normal people would agree that children cannot consent to permanent, irreversible changes to their bodies, radical Dems would rather deny reality and harm children. Despite holding a bachelor's degree in child psychology and American Indian Studies for whatever that's worth, Flanagan has led the charge to legalize the castration of children under the guise of acceptance. Before becoming lieutenant governor, Flanagan was previously a state representative and a school board member. Flanagan has always been a far-left politician with deep ties to the Democrat Party, including work with woke social justice groups like the Management Center, training political activists and candidates for the Wellstone Action, where she met Tim Walz in 2005, and being the executive director of the Children's Defense Fund Minnesota. It would be safe to assume that Flanagan has not gotten these positions because of talent, but rather because of identity politics and Flanagan's connections.
Yeah, but what's her identity?
Native American.
What? Really?
Yep.
I've never known that. I mean,
exactly. That's all she's got.
You'd think she'd say something once.
That's all she's got, and you wouldn't even know it by looking at her. So that's why she feels the need to talk about it all the time.
But she should at least say it one time. I've never heard her say as a American. How would she put it? As a Native American? I think she goes as Ojibwe. Yeah. I think that's what she says.
White Earth Ojibwe. Right. Yeah.
Because remember, there are tribes.
Right. So Flanagan's mother, Patricia Flanagan, is a previous staffer for Hubert Humphrey's 1968 presidential campaign, and her father, Marvin Manypenny, was an American Indian and land sovereignty activist. Interestingly, her father, Manypenny, was previously a target of Michelle Bachmann for his refusal to pay income taxes on the basis of his ethnicity, which did not work out in his favor in court. Flanagan's aunt was also a previous legislative candidate, highlighting the political nature of her upbringing.
Wait a second. So her father refused to pay federal income taxes?
Right.
Oh, well, we agree with him. Holy cow, taxation's theft, right?
And yeah, it was interesting. I was seeing all these articles. Bachmann's the tax collector. So,
she what? You know, she worked for the IRS. She was an
right,
IRS attorney.
That's what it was all about.
Oh, it was during her official capacity, not like when she was.
Yes, she was one of the people who had targeted him, and they had meetings together. So Bachmann's fingerprints are all over that case.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And yeah, I'm kind of on your side of this too, that I'm not necessarily Mr. Tax Collector. So, I just would hope that Flanagan would able to have a consistent view of that as well. I'm sure there's maybe some time where she's said, show us your tax returns to Trump or something along those lines.
Yeah, but of course she wants people to pay taxes, right?
Right.
Yeah, so
exactly.
she's not a principled non-tax person.
Right. Yep, exactly. And, it sounds like her mom was the one who raised her anyway, not her dad. So
What do you mean by that?
I'm saying that
He wasn't present?
he wasn't present in the household from the sounds of my research here. But so Walz selected Flanagan for lieutenant governor in 2017 while trying to balance identity politics, like male and female, rural, urban, white, non-white. But their relationship has since begun falling apart. One sign of tension emerged during the failed and embarrassing campaign of Kamala Walz for president and VP, as they did very little to highlight and elevate Flanagan on the national scene, as she had no co-appearances with Tim Walz during that period. Tension also began to be reported as Flanagan allegedly started taking steps to assume the governor's office, preparing a run herself in 2026, and even using some of Walz's gubernatorial campaign funds without authorization. Walz has refused to comment on that beyond claiming he doesn't know anything about it. Walz has even hinted at a Senate run himself, highlighting that he and Flanagan are not on the same page. However, indications seem to point to Walz running for a third governor term. If he does so, whoever he selects as lieutenant governor would be seen as the most likely person to be his true preferred successor. While personality, roles, and tactics may separate Walz and Flanagan, very little separates the two ideologically, as they are both power-hungry, big government tyrants. Flanagan has always been an opportunistic, radical left career politician who was just trying to climb the ladder. She was previously the chair of the Democratic Lieutenant Governors Association and was one of the 4 chairs for the 2024 DNC convention. These positions show that Flanagan is well-connected and is on the rise for Democrats. Flanagan has even used her second marriage to consolidate power with the media. In 2019, she married Tom Weber, former news host with Minnesota Public Radio, NPR, and he was then forced to change coverage by NPR to prevent conflicts of interest. Flanagan's far-left record was on full display
Hold on, we got a Rumble rant. Let's go.
Yeah, I'll hit that first. Let's see. JL Jazz, $5 Rumble rant. Didn't Flanagan use her Native American race card when they took down the Christopher Columbus statue on the Capitol grounds?
Do
you know about that?
Oh, yeah, she's cheering it on. Oh, yeah, that was before you were in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was during COVID when, essentially you have to have 6 feet of distance between yourself and the next person, except for when you're taking down a statue on Capitol grounds. Do I have this right? I think that was during COVID.
That's interesting.
Am I forgetting about this? You remember there was a thing that was sweeping the nation where we want to just erase history. It ended up in, a bunch of Civil War monuments being taken down with Confederate monuments. Now I'm starting to second guess myself. I feel like it happened during COVID, and the guy that did it, who I believe was Native American, he was charged but never spent any time in jail, and it was like a slap on the wrist. Continue on. I'm going to look this up because that was a great point, Jennifer.
Yep, and I also see Tucker saying yes, she has an Irish name. Talking about Flanagan. Well, her mom is Irish, so that's where that side of it comes.
Well, that's
from.
not her married name. No. Yeah, it's just said Tom. Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Flanagan is her mom's maiden name too. So obviously she went with
not Manny Penny.
Right, not Manny Penny. Right. So Flanagan's far-left record will be on full display during this U.S. Senate campaign. However, her website currently lists 0 policy positions. Like Kamala and Walz tried and failed at, voters can tell when you are hiding your real positions from them. Flanagan may crash and burn during this run, since she has seemingly lost the support of Walz and could face primary challengers such as Congresswomen Ilhan Omar and Angie Craig, and even legislative tyrant Melissa Hortman. Go ahead and click that link, the legislative tyrant Melissa Hortman there, Dawson, because I would just like to bring this on people's radar. This is a tweet here. Minnesota House DFL leader Melissa Hortman isn't ruling out a run for Senator Tina Smith's seat yet. Ted Modrich, which is Hortman's senior advisor, says that after the legislative session, quote, she and likely others will consider what comes next personally and professionally. So it's very interesting to note that Melissa Hortman could be a potential candidate for this U.S. Senate seat, considering how she has weaponized the role of Speaker during her time in the State House. She would be obviously a real threat to liberty if she were to get in the race and if she were to win. So the vague identity politics that Flanagan is using to get herself ahead, it can only take untalented politicians so far. and we may be nearing the end of the line for Flanagan. So Action for Liberty will continue to track and report the U.S. Senate race and all of the surrounding developments to keep an informed patriot populace. Below, you will see the names of all candidates that have announced a run for this seat, as we expect this list to continue to grow. So as you will see, Peggy Flanagan is listed as a Democrat. Christopher Seymour, who I had mentioned before, is a perennial candidate who is also running on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, obviously we know Royce White is running. He was the endorsed candidate last time for U.S. Senate. Adam Schwarzy is a candidate. Alicia Gruenhagen, who had run for the U.S. Senate last time. She's the daughter of Glenn Gruenhagen, state senator, and she was a Democrat candidate in 2020 and 2022 for CD7. So she has also thrown herself back into the mix. I sent the video of her announcement to you previously, Jake, and you said that it had to have been the most bland, boring announcement you've ever seen in your life. I got it linked in there. I don't know if we want to watch it. It's really not that interesting.
I love how we're in the entertainment business, and you go, should we watch the very bland, boring video?
Right. I think we'll skip it. And then Raymond Peterson, he was also a candidate in 2024 for U.S. Senate. He was a Republican candidate. He got third place. Somehow he got third place, almost 8% of the vote or something like that, even though nobody's ever heard of him before. So that was just an interesting addition on this list. And also a guy named Mike Ruho. Let's go back to the article there, Dawson, just for a second. So Mike Ruho, I'd never heard of this guy before. He was a pretend presidential candidate this last time. He was pretending to run for president. So go ahead and click that Liz Cheney lover / Trump hater. So this was something I just found about this guy. You know, this is on his presidential campaign. So get a load of this guy. He says, Liz Cheney, let's chat and take on DeSantis and Trump. Common sense, America first, people first. You need to keep up your pressure on Trump. Okay, so this guy wants to run as a Republican, and he's a big-time anti-Trumper. I think you belong to the wrong party, pal, if you're trying to say that you're against Trump, if you're trying to say you're against even Ron DeSantis. I mean, how far left is this guy? So Mike Ruho, he's going to be, a nothing burger in this race, but, people can...
Can we click on his photo there real quick?
Yeah, he's a younger guy. He's younger than I was expecting, so...
Okay.
Yeah, so he's also got a Twitter. People can check that out, I guess. But I imagine that this is pretty uneventful, that he is just another person who wants to put his name on the ballot. And for the Libertarians, Rebecca Whiting is also running again. So that rounds out where this race stands currently for the U.S. Senate. And like I said, we will let people know when more candidates announce. It looks like more and more are going to be coming throughout the week and throughout the coming weeks. So Action for Liberty will continue to, and The Truth Hurts will continue to keep people informed on this race.
Okay, so to follow up on Jen, Mike Forshaw, a member of the Bad River Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, was charged with criminal damage to property for toppling the Christopher Columbus statue in front of the Minnesota Capitol in June of 2020. However, the felony charges were later dismissed, and Forshaw completed community service instead. Now, I think this to replace it would cost $400,000, which of course we haven't. Dawson, pull up the A3. This is an image, Distressed America, of, this is Gabriel Black Elk, not to be confused with Gabriel White Elk, who is Lakota, kneels on the neck of a fallen statue of Christopher Columbus. Oh, kneels on the neck.
Wow.
Clever one, huh? I see what he did there.
Mm-hmm.
Of Christopher Columbus, and holds an American flag with the names of Native Americans killed by police at the Minnesota State Capitol in St. Paul on Wednesday. That was worded very weirdly.
Yeah.
Just for the record, they did not... Police did not kill Native Americans at the Capitol on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I think he was standing there on Wednesday. They didn't kill Native Americans on Wednesday. That is really worded interestingly,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Until it was pulled down, many Minnesotans didn't even know there was a statue of Columbus on the Capitol grounds. But on the day it was unveiled in October 1931, tens of thousands of people showed up for the event. According to Kate Bean, Dakota scholar and director of the Native American Initiative at the Minnesota Historical Society, the intentions behind the statue were good. It was up as a way of speaking to discrimination that Italian Americans had been dealing with, said Bean, who is a member of the Flandro Santee Sioux tribe. Probably murdered that one. For years, scroll down there, Dawson. There's actually a picture of all these people at the state capitol. For years, Italian immigrants were considered ethnic outsiders by the northern Europeans who came to Minnesota before them. The statue was meant to lift up all Italians by honoring those most notable Italian in the United States history at the time. But as we move forward in time, certain voices are added to this narrative that were previously excluded. Anyhow, if we scroll down here, it talks about the board. Paul Mandel, Executive Secretary of the Capitol Area Architectural and Planning Board, which is responsible for approving any changes to the Capitol grounds, said the board is planning to meet at the state legislature's special session to talk about what to do next because we don't, quote, we don't have any process for how to handle removals. We've never done this before. The board is chaired by Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, who has stated publicly her support for the statue's removal. Lieutenant Governor, who is a member of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe, in case you didn't know that, said it's important that all people feel welcome on the grounds at the state capitol. Not those Italians, though. Not those damn Italians. So anyhow, yeah, she's been all over this thing. Obviously, very vocal opponent to having Christopher Columbus because we just got to erase history. Not that Christopher Columbus necessarily was a great dude, but obviously what he accomplished was something very notable. I mean, it's just so interesting. We're just going to erase history. It's so dumb. Anyhow, go to the A2, Dawson. And what I'd like to do is show you, we did a video when Peggy wore that trans shirt. And this was, you have to remember at the time what this was about. So Peggy and Tim Walz held a press conference. I believe, Jesse, if I'm right, this was her and Tim Walz just doing an executive order to make Minnesota trans sanctuary state.
Right.
This was before the bill
before,
signed.
Right. That's what I was going to say, too. I think it was before the bill had actually passed.
Right. Okay, so we do a video on this. No one in the media was asking about the damn shirt she was wearing. Let's go ahead and play this, Dawson. Tweet this out yesterday. What the hell is Peggy Flanagan wearing? Her shirt says "Protect Trans Kid" and it's got like a bayonet or big knife on it. What is that? You guys found the picture. Can you scroll down? I don't know how Twitter works. Oh yeah, scroll down right there. That's the shirt she's wearing. Protect trans kids with a knife.
Yeah.
Which means one of two things, you would think. Call for violence, or this is what we use to cut off dicks. Like, what do we do? Why didn't anyone in lazy media ask her about her shirt? Like, that's a pretty interesting shirt to wear at a press conference. First of all, like, she dresses down all the time, but like, because someone made a comment about her presiding over the Senate on day one of the legislature, and she's like wearing, God, whatever she was wearing was way underdressed. But anyhow, she's wearing a T-shirt on the press conference.
Yeah.
Just throw a blazer over it. So it's like, you're making a political statement here. What's the political statement? Where in the media are they asking these damn obvious, easy questions that they should be asking? All right, what are you trying to say here? So, I mean, we still have not gotten an answer to this day. And, you know, we are led to believe that anytime a Republican, especially Trump, even alludes to something that could be, you know, considered a call to violence. I mean, they ignore the left. I'm not telling you something you don't know, but they just go overtly crazy when it's something on the right. And I'm not saying that there's not justification. I mean, there's probably justification for going after people on the right too on this issue. But this is like, I mean, Dawson, you're probably the best devil's advocate we have around here. Can you think of what that shirt would mean? Like, give me like a good context to that. That's not calling for violence, which the left seems to be unified against, right?
It seems like, I feel like I remember we looked it up and there was a specific artist who made that image, and then that image got put like on T-shirts everywhere and cups and all that stuff.
Right.
I don't remember if we ever found their like reasoning behind the art, though.
No, there was no reasoning. They didn't even bother to ask her the question.
Well, I'm not talking about Peggy Flanagan. I'm talking about the artist who made the art.
I don't think so either, but I'm just saying,
I can look into
can
it
you
if I find
think?
anything.
No, I'm not asking you to look it up. I'm like, can you even think what that would be?
Do you think there will be
I
an
guess
answer
they
if
could
I look
argue
it up?
it's defensive, but it doesn't make any sense.
So like a defensive? Okay.
Right. You know, but even that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know, it's there really isn't any justification.
Right. So the idea, okay, which is what we would argue with guns, right? But, you know, they would, of course, call that a call to violence.
Right.
Yeah. I guess I could see a self-defense. But it seems like it's something that should have been asked. Anyhow, it doesn't take away from the most important thing. What they did that day was just atrocious. I think we're going to look back at this and go, the society that we live in today was crazy for allowing children. You know what? It's not as young as 6. I mean, they're going younger than that. That's crazy. But even 6, because I have a 7-year-old at home and I got a 4-year-old at home. So I know this age group very well, to think that they can make this life-altering decision. And as Peggy said, she says on stage, when our children speak, we need to listen to them. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? Kids are not someone that make rational decisions, right?
And she should know this. Like I said in the article,
Right.
She's got a child psychology degree. Anyone knows that children can consent. And the left loves to pretend to protect children, but meanwhile, they don't mind trying all of this experimental stuff on them. This is all stuff that is completely untested. We have no idea how these kids are going to be in the future. And Flanagan, as if she's any kind of expert it doesn't make any sense. She's obviously, got this belief. And once these Democrats are on the side of transgender children, you can't win them back over. They're pretty much lost forever.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next segment here. This is about Wisconsin. We're going to have...
And there was a couple quick comments I
go
wanted
ahead.
to get to here, because I had saw what TMAT72 had said. Why is the Senate wasting time if we should have a Bob Dylan or Prince song as the state song? And I looked into that pretty recently, and it's crazy. I mean, politicians, I guess I would rather they waste time on things that don't really matter like that than doing something important. But at the same time, it is ridiculous that that's what the politicians are concerned about, when they should be concerned about fighting the radical Democrats and reclaiming our freedom.
Sorry, I looked it up. That Protect Trans Kids thing, its art is by a tattoo artist who's liberal leaning. And they basically said
no
what
wonder
Jesse
they're liberal leaning.
I didn't hear the second thing.
It's basically what Jesse said. It's a call to actively defend the rights of transgender kids.
With a bayonet.
I mean, protect my house, protect our guns. With
I
the picture
mean,
of a gun.
you see how that undercuts everything they say about not being able to protect yourself with a firearm unless they don't think knives kill people too. But
Yeah.
You don't
Well,
think
that's the thing.
well,
A lot
no,
of-
that's why
It's,
we protest against their calls for gun control, because you have an absolute right to defend yourself with a firearm.
See,
But now they out there, my buddy, he's got a shirt. Oh my God, embarrasses his wife. It kind of, I won't make any more comments. His shirt is a picture of a pistol, and it's got smoke coming out of there. It just got fired, and it says aromatherapy.
Yeah.
Do you remember that story? I don't think we ever talked about it on the show. What's that? What's the Nazi's name? The guy who has the show.
Elon Musk? No, I'm just kidding.
No, he's a little troll. That's how you've described him.
Friedis? Nick
Nick Fuentes.
Fuentes, that's it. When he started getting into some heat for saying "your body, my choice" stuff, there's a really big influx of liberal people, specifically women, being like, "Well, here's my gun, like, good luck," that kind of thing. I feel like liberal people tend to be okay with guns for self-defense.
No, not at all. I mean,
think you're wrong. I actually know you're wrong, because most of the liberal people I've talked to are totally fine with self-defense with a gun.
Well, do most liberals own a gun? That'd be the answer. No.
yeah, but
it's,
you also have to look at what they're. I mean, they could say what that all day long, but they're trying to take away your right to defend yourself.
To like an assault rifle.
Assault rifle,
looking
the
at an
magazine
assault rifle,
capacity.
if they're looking at that stuff and saying that's too much, but then they have a pistol, does that mean that they're against gun rights?
100% they're against
Does
gun
that
rights.
mean,
In fact,
though,
constitutionally, they don't have a right to infringe on it at all.
Does that mean, though, that they are against self-protection with a firearm?
I mean, listen, if you ask someone directly, they would say, no, of course, someone should be able to defend their life with it. Although I would say that there are parts of the radical left that would make
the
that
castle
argument.
doctrine, that's what the castle
Right.
doctrine is such a huge battle over, because people want to be able to defend their property, and we've got the government who tells us that we can't, and that you can only take a certain, that you can only do certain allowable things. If you feel your life is threatened, I think people should have every opportunity and every right to protect themselves in whatever way they see fit.
See, and that's what I'm saying. I think that most
But Democrats are against the
Democrats.
castle doctrine.
I'm saying that most Democrats, like Jake said, are willing to defend themselves with a firearm. They think that they should have that right.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, definitely personally. And I'm saying if you ask them that question, yes, but I look at their acts more.
Well,
And
sure,
their actions are terrible. They're
well,
trying to take away firearms.
Well,
There are some people on the left that literally want to get rid of all firearms.
yeah, and I would argue those people are crazy. I think that though that
Well, yeah.
leads into this shirt with the bayonet on it or whatever, the knife, and it makes sense because if they're thinking self-protection, trans kids' rights, they can make that connection for its self-defense.
You know that there's great
Yeah, and
parts of-
Martisma says 1967 says we have a duty to retreat in Minnesota, which is true that we're not supposed to defend ourselves because of Democrat politicians telling us that
That's a
you
great point.
aren't supposed to defend yourself. You're supposed to retreat,
Right.
which is insane.
It's smarter.
Maybe
Yeah, you know
maybe a
what,
smarter
maybe-
move, but it should be your choice. It should
Maybe-
be, if you're the victim, you should be able to defend yourself in whatever way that you think is the safest. If that means killing that person, you should be able to do that. If that means fleeing the house, do that.
We
But
have
you
a
got to
friendly-
do whatever is
We
smart.
have a friendly amendment to Peggy Flanagan's shirt. It says, it's got the picture of the bayonet, but it says must retreat first.
Yeah.
Do you think that before retreating, you should be killing somebody? If someone thinks
If you're,
that,
yeah, you
someone's
have a
pointing-
right.
If someone's pointing a gun at you, yeah, you have every right to be able to shoot. them.
Well, okay. Well, okay. So Dawson, the way the law works is if there's a reasonable way. Actually, here's the way it really goes. You do not have a right to stand your ground. That's why it's called stand your ground. Okay. So essentially, if you have the ability to remove yourself from the situation, you are legally obligated in Minnesota to do that.
yeah,
Well, you should be able to stand your ground. If you like, what's a good example?
think
It's like basketball, you know?
I think it very much.
The way the basketball goes is you can have an offensive penalty because you charged a defender who has planted his feet. It's called charging, right?
Yeah.
He's standing his ground. In Minnesota, it would say if a guy's coming towards the hoop, no matter what you do, you got to run and get out of the way.
I think
Right?
a better.
You have no right to the ground you stand
I
on.
think a better example is remember that guy who was in the river and he killed that kid with a knife.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that happened in Minnesota. I'm pretty sure that was Wisconsin, but he should have retreated. His
Well,
duty
first of
should
all,
have been
that
to
was
get out.
Wisconsin, which doesn't have the same law system as we do.
Yeah.
But with that being said,
And
I
that
don't
would be
think the jury got
yeah,
it wrong.
And that's not even about you're thinking about the situation wrong. It would be the victims
Yeah.
who are you're saying they should be the ones who should have to flee instead of being allowed to fight back.
Well, the defense was arguing he was the victim, right?
Right, that's what I'm going after. Like he had a duty to walk away if he felt like those kids were messing with him too much. That makes sense to me. That in my brain, it's like, yeah, he shouldn't have killed anybody.
I think people should be able to choose for themselves what the wisest move is. I don't think that there's any way that the government can figure out how a person should be able to conduct themselves in a high intense situation like that. And you know, I want to get back to the tranny thing. I was thinking about one final point on the child transgender point. I was thinking about it because we got all these Democrats who want to pretend that it's not a mental illness, but transgender people kill themselves at a higher rate than Jews in Nazi Germany. So are we supposed to believe that there is a worse stigma for transgenders in America than there was for Jews in Nazi Germany? It's unbelievable. We need to come back to reality on this thing. We need to quit feeding into people's delusions. And that's why Peggy Flanagan is such a major threat. If she's going to push this onto the national stage, it's only going to get worse.
Well, you can't do life-altering surgeries or hormone treatments and schedules because you just don't know about it.
And they can't
The left
consent.
has to ignore that there are people that have transitioned back or that have
Yeah.
regretted it. You have to go forward with what they're saying. You have to ignore that.
A few.
And they act like you can't bring up the tattoo example, but it's a great example.
Right.
You don't let minors get tattoos.
Well, in sex. You don't
Well,
let
there's
kids have
another one.
sex. They can't consent. That's the biggest argument. They cannot consent. So why would they be able to consent to castration? It doesn't make sense.
Do we have Andy?
Let me pull up Zoom. I think I saw a notification that he jumped in.
Okay. Well, let's go to the second segment here. This is about Wisconsin. Tony Evers, their governor, very woke governor. This is a very interesting scenario. We're going to have Andy Parrish, who's a contributor at WIZM out of La Crosse, weigh in on this thing because he's actually doing radio in Wisconsin. But let's first go to, let's see, what is this? WPDE? What is that? Is that what's an affiliate somewhere? ABC 15 News. There you go. ABC 15 News. This is why the hell does the article say by Ben Crumpholtz of Fox 11 News? I have no idea. And it's on WPDE.
Well,
I'm not gonna pretend like I know every.
Lots of news stations they just run another article from someone else.
They're competing like Fox one. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's from Wausau, all right. Well, this one says WLUK. I don't know. I don't know. I can pretend I know every Wisconsin media market. Go ahead and play this video, Dawson.
Tonight at 9, a war of words tonight as Governor Tony Evers is standing by his proposal to swap out the word mother for inseminated person in state law.
Now, the change has made national headlines and has been the subject of criticism from Republicans. Fox 11's Ben Crumpholtz brings us balanced news coverage.
Republicans locally and across the country have been railing on Governor Tony Evers' desire to make some parts of state law gender neutral. Elon Musk calling it messed up, and Brett Favre saying it's nonsense.
In all my time in and around politics, this is probably the dumbest proposal that I've seen. I think it's incredibly offensive to women, to mothers.
Republican State Senator Andre Jacques is talking about Evers' proposed changes to a section of state law about artificial insemination. Husband, man, mother, and father would be replaced with terms like person, spouse, and inseminated person.
If I called my mother an inseminated person, she'd probably slap me with good reason.
What the Republicans say is a lie, so of course I'm pretty PO'd about that.
After attending a roundtable in Wausau, Evers told Fox 11 he stands by his proposal, which was included as part of his 1,900-page state budget bill. He believes Republicans are misconstruing his attempt at helping families who use in vitro fertilization for their own political gain.
All we want is to make sure that moms and dads have the legal, things have been taken care of legally so that moms can have a year of service from an OBGYN. End of story.
Is the change needed for something like that, as he
Not
explains?
at all. I've never heard that explanation. That has never been presented. And did he actually call them mothers when he said that? Because if he understands the term as easily as you and I do now, there certainly would be no call for him to change it in the statutes.
Evers wants to change other parts of state law as well. One state Republican lawmaker counting at least 30 times mother is replaced with a gender-neutral term, father subbed out more than 120 times. Evers says he'd be willing to present his changes in a separate bill. Republicans say they won't be considered as is. Ben Crumpholtz,
Okay.
Fox 11 News.
So, Jesse, I think this is actually a case of the woke right getting some things wrong and a lying Democrat governor. Let's get that Rumble rant before bringing Andy.
We got JL Jazz, $5 Rumble rant says, "Hey, Jake, did you get my gift? It arrived at the A4L headquarters a few weeks ago. I hope it looks good in the room it is meant for."
Jen, yes, I did, and we'll see you on Thursday. I assume you're coming to the Founders Club. All right. Andy, contributor at WIZM, welcome back to the show, my good buddy.
Hey, how are you, Jake? Remember
bad.
when we used to joke about this kind of stuff when we were in college 20-some years ago? We used to joke about this, and now it's happening.
Did we even conjure this up in our heads at that point?
Yeah, that's why we left United Council. Remember, we launched that campaign against United Council because they had the gender-neutral bathrooms on campus. And, but if you want to talk about, I'm going to do a man on the street gig for my podcast, and I'm going to go down to UWL, and I'm going to read some of those statements that you heard, and I'm going to say which politician said this, and I'm going to list off Donald Trump, George Bush, and then I'm going to go to Tony Evers and see how many people actually say it, because if you want to talk about one of the most misogynist, I don't even know how the hell you say it.
Misogynist?
Misogynist, there you go. One of the most misogynist things that a politician can do, it's to remove the title mother and father from somebody, but specifically mother, when exactly 0 people asked for this. And it's part of this. Go ahead.
Well, okay, so this is my issue. That's not what he's doing. So he's not wrong that the Republicans are lying. We looked this up. But he's also disguising his hidden agenda. He actually is lying about, this is just to make sure that they get certain rights. So let's actually show you what you're going to do. And Andy, I'm guessing you probably haven't seen this yet. It's actually pretty interesting stuff. It's tackling IVF treatment, which is the hot button topic. By the way, Trump already expanding it at the national level, right? Was that an executive order? It must have been an executive order that he signed.
Yeah, but Jake, an inseminated person is still a mother, right? They're still carrying that child, and they're still giving birth to that child.
I know.
I don't buy that.
I agree. But that state senator from Wisconsin is making it sound like he's trying to remove the term mother from all government operations. It's specifically going to a certain section, and there's a reason it's that section. This is the actual bill, the proposal. This is under a Senate file right now in Wisconsin. It's Senate Bill 45. Sorry, Wisconsin's not Senate file. It's Senate Bill 45, page 1766. So it's touching state statute 891, and this is specifically section 40 or 891.40, which is referring to IVF. Okay, and now I'm just going to read this first one. I'm going to tell you what I think is going on. Dawson, it's towards the bottom there. Just like in Minnesota, what they'll do is when they're getting the language, they're removing the language that's already in law, they're striking it out, and when they're adding it, it's underlined. So what it would initially say, if under the supervision of a licensed physician and with the consent of her husband, a wife is inseminated artificially with semen donated by men. Okay, so now they're getting rid of those gender pronouns there, and it's going, if with the spouse's consent, a person is inseminated artificially as provided in paragraph B with semen donated by a person who is not the spouse of the person being inseminated, the spouse of the inseminated person at the time of the conception of the child shall be the natural parent of a child conceived. The crossing out husband, the spouse's consent must be in writing and signed by him or her added, and crossing out the wife by the inseminated person. Okay, now clearly they are changing law to remove the term wife here or mother and put inseminated person, and to remove father or a father with a parent, husband with a spouse. Okay?
They messed it up.
Now, what? Of course they would mess it up.
Right
Dude, it's so hard to keep track of this. Now, why are you doing this? Here's the question. Why are you doing this? Tony Evers. Go ahead. Go ahead, Andy.
Jake, we're you got to remember too, in Wisconsin, we're sitting on a $4.9 billion or $4.6 billion budget surplus and a $1.9 billion rainy day fund, and so we're sitting on a close to $6.5 billion on surplus money, and this is just a distraction, I think, from the real issue of give the money back. And so Tony has drawn Republicans out for a fight, and now the fight is over gender pronouns and not really about giving the surplus back or what to do with the surplus. And so it's never going to pass. Look, the way it works here, the governor makes a budget proposal. It goes to a joint finance committee in the House and the Senate. And then once they kick it out, it goes to both houses, and then it's got to pass. And so this is nothing, I think, but a distraction, a stupid one at that.
I don't think so, Andy, because I think what's going on is this is accounting for the new thing that's going on. And I say new in the sense that, I mean, it's no longer a decade old, okay? My sister's got a story about this, by the way, Andy. You'll appreciate this because she was in a, what would you call it, a birthing wing of a hospital.
Yeah, she's an OB nurse. Yeah,
she was.
Nurse.
No, she was.
Thanks, Jake. I'll tell people what your sister is. Yep.
Okay. One of my sisters.
I got you, Jenny.
Yeah. So this idea that a man can give birth, right? Because if you think about this, what they're doing is they're removing the gender-specific stuff,
right?
For something my sister got counseling. I'm not saying counseling because of like a response to something she did. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing the story. It's too late now, I guess. But they were proactively telling nursing staff at the time, and I think this was got to be like 6 years ago, that there is a trans person, so someone that's a woman but identifying as a man, who is literally going to give birth. Which, so, Andy, how many men can give birth, by the way?
0. And
okay,
I think there's a couple of things happening here that when you bring it up that way, Jake, that I do believe need to be addressed. So according to the UCLA Law School or School of Law, they're 0.6% of the country identifies as transgender. And I have no doubt in my mind that in their mind, they do believe that they are an opposite gender of what their body tells them they are. Mm-hmm. But they're not what they think they are. You know, we have thousands of years and millions of scientists and everyone else who've all concluded that there's an X chromosome and an XY. And so you have the left now kind of pushing this radical agenda on us for 0.6% of the people. And you're taking away, whether he likes it or not, the reality is once that becomes law, then the state's going to start using the term inseminated person and, you know, getting rid of mother and father. That's the way it is. You know, if you think about it too, Jake, I mean, think about all the forms. You were in the military. You did a ton of administrative work. Think of all the forms that the state is going to have to change at this point and the financial repercussions on that. It's stupid. It needs to come out. And people need to stop pushing this agenda on us for 0.6% of the country. It's becoming ridiculous. I was doing some research on this earlier this morning, and a new term came up for me now that the left is using. It's called minor attracted person.
Oh, we've talked about that on this show.
And you know
it's
what?
A big deal.
It is getting to the point where people have just got to say, stop it. This is over the top. I understand that you're probably struggling with your gender identity, but now we're talking about changing the title. I mean, any mother who goes in to get inseminated, Jake, wants to be called a mother. They want to become a mom. You know, this reminds me so much. If you go back to our high school days, really, I mean, what Tony is calling these people, and I'm not going to say it on your show, but what's the difference between he's dehumanizing women to the point where the best they are is inseminated people.
No, but see, I don't think he's going that far, but
he is going that far. Well, that's exactly what he's doing.
I don't think he is, but I don't think you're wrong in this because it starts with this to be. So the idea I think behind this is to be, because I think he wants to be inclusive to the new transgendered people.
0.6% of the
even
country,
like
25,000 Wisconsinites.
Right, but even lesbians, you know, the current statute wouldn't have been able to cover them because it says husband, and obviously there's no husband.
Correct.
In a
That's the other
marriage.
one.
Because they aren't the father, Jesse.
No, but that's what. Okay. So now I'm going to read this again to you. This is just the first
mother. That's it.
They tackle many parts of this statute, 891.40.
Right. There's only one mother, but there's only one inseminated person.
So think about this again, as Jesse just alluded to.
Mother.
I know.
Yeah.
Think of this as you're a transgender man who is giving birth. So you're really a woman, but you're pretending to be a man, and you're giving birth to a child. And think of this as two women. Okay. Now I'm going to read this again to you. Right. If with the spouse's consent, remove husband, a person, cross out wife, is inseminated artificially with semen donated by cross out man, person who is not, cross out her husband, the spouse of the person being inseminated, the cross out husband, spouse of the cross out mother, inseminated person at the time of the conception of the child shall be the natural cross out father, parent of a child conceived. Do you see how this encompasses, it's inclusive to the transgender man who's giving birth? So, and then also bringing in the lesbians. Of course, men can't be part of this because if it's two gay guys, clearly they clearly can't give birth, right? That's not possible.
What's the new thing now that they're saying for gay men that adopt? It's not breastfeeding, it's chest feeding. I mean, there's got to come a point where we've just got to say, all right, this has gone too far.
Right.
And this is,
okay, but this is where you might be right, Andy. This is where you might be right. So I think it starts, and by the way, Tony Evers is just straight up lying to the media here. Like, that's what this is about. Like, is this even debatable? That's what this is about. So he's lying about that, but it starts with inclusivity with these 0.6% of the population, if it's even that. And then what it's going to do is then they're going to argue, well, now there's a stigma against it, so we should neutralize that term all throughout government.
Why stop there? I mean, let's start calling siblings, let's start calling brothers and sisters things like carbon similar people, or let's call grandparents ancestral DNA givers. I mean, at what point do we just say enough? We have this is beyond stupid. I mean, look, my politics are I want my gay married friends to protect their weed with guns. I want people left alone. But you don't have a right to infringe on somebody else's liberty. And you've got women who are going in there who have been dying and been begging and trying, as Tim Walz would say, going through the hell of infertility to become a mother. And now they're the best they are to the state of Wisconsin is an inseminated person. I mean, this is for what? How many transgender women who think they're men actually go in to get artificially inseminated?
I mean,
Probably
it's
none.
Like, has it been a dozen in 10 years? I don't know.
I mean, so he's willing to take away this title for mothers. That's all the best he thinks of these women is the best he can come up with is inseminated person.
Well, you got to be inclusive,
to me, that's
Andy.
Insulting.
You got to be inclusive. You're not inclusive,
no, I don't
Andy.
need to be inclusive. I don't need to be inclusive. I don't need to accept minor attracted people. I don't need to accept this stuff because, you know, society is with us, Jake. And,
I know,
we've
big
seen
time.
it with the silent majority. But you know what? We don't have anyone that's willing to just, other than you, Jesse, a few others that are willing to go out and just call this what it is, and really go after these people because they're afraid that somehow this left-wing religious, almost cult-like people are going to come after you and call you names. You know, it's to me, it's the dumbest thing in the world. And to me, I can't believe that I live in a day and age today where grown adults who are educated are changing mother to inseminated person. That is the world we live in today. We live in a world where we are saying that the state should pay for men to have breasts bolted on them because they can become a woman then. Mm-hmm. This is insane, and it's got to end. And look, this has personally affected me. I sent you the video, and I'm not going to share it here because it has minors in it. My daughter, and I'm proud to say daughter, made a one of the highest level volleyball club teams you can make. And they travel all around the Midwest, all around the area, and they play. And she had to play, and you know my daughter, Tessa, she's tiny. I mean, we celebrated when she made the growth chart in 3rd grade. She made this team as a defensive specialist in the back row. And if you know volleyball out there, that's a big deal. And she had to play against a team that had a boy pretending to be a girl who was 6'3", and he scored all of their points as an outside hitter. And if you want to talk about something demoralizing towards women, if you want to talk about a real war on women, Jake, it's changing their name to inseminated person and taking away that title of mother. And it's allowing boys who think they're girls to go in and play girl sports and crush their spirits. Because that's what happened.
You know, it's so interesting, Andy. We've known each other for more than 2 decades. And in college, remember Title IX became a big deal? We lost our baseball team and wrestling program. They had to equalize it with women's sports, which we were opposed to. Not that we were against women's sports, just that the fact that, you know, let the marketplace of ticket sales.
There's a reality behind it, Jake, that with what you're talking about, that is just real. I mean, if you look at supposed this gender wage gap that the women's soccer team talks about
Before you go
on
a sidetrack, you remember this was the issue 20 plus years ago in college that the Democrats were championing in Wisconsin colleges, and now they're the ones against basically Title IX protecting women's sports. Isn't that crazy?
Well, I mean, they groomed us. Jake, they groomed us. They started grooming 20 years ago for us to accept this, and you and I were smart enough not to.
But I'm saying they're not accepting of it now,
right,
because
even some of the women are the ones who are pushing this. Like, you know, we talked about Peggy Flanagan, but, you know, people might have seen Janet Mills, who is the governor of Maine, who was at the White House. Trump was giving a conference, you know, speech to all of the governors across the states, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was awesome how he called out Janet Mills. He goes, you know, is the governor of Maine here? Oh, so you're going to fight us on having men and women's sports? You're not getting any federal money. And, you know, I watched the entire speech. It was actually an incredible speech. It's one of his best in the second term so far, because it was to the point. It was elevated. It wasn't like he was everything was amazing about it. And to put Janet Mills in her place, she's sitting there going, you know, she's so upset about it, but she really doesn't have any kind of good comeback other than we'll see you in court.
Jesse, where are all the feminists at that fought so hard for Title IX? If your audience doesn't know about Title IX simply said that you have to have an equal number of scholarships or close to, therefore, for women in athletics that you do men.
To supposedly
protect, doesn't matter what the sport is.
To supposedly protect women's sports, which now can be taken over by boys.
And so you had all these feminists and you had all these Democrats out there that were literally changing state law to ensure that women had equal access to scholarships when it came to athletics and colleges. And now they're losing them.
Right.
They're losing them to men.
Right.
And it's just got to stop. At what
You
point?
remember when Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner.
No, it's Bruce Jenner. It's Bruce Jenner.
Well,
yes.
I mean, he changed his name. So anyhow, won like Woman of the Year. I can't remember, was it ABC Sports or someone gave, maybe
it was an ESPY, wasn't it?
I think it was an ESPY.
Yeah.
And it's like, and this happens not just with that. Oh no, was that Time Magazine? Well, whatever. It was like Woman of the Year. It's like, of
Finky
all
got
the
one, too.
hundreds of millions. What's that?
Finky got one too. Remember,
that's
Finky
right.
was a Minnesota Woman of the Year.
That's right. And it's like, of like the 150 plus women in America, you lose to a man. Like, it's so crazy. This is so crazy. But of course, I'm probably preaching to the choir in our audience. Maybe a leftist maneuvers onto this that has an open mind these days. I don't know. But the population is not behind. That's why Trump's taking these big stances right now. And by the way, that Maine governor back and forth was just so good. I got to move to the next segment. Do you want to stay on in third wheel, or do you need to go, Andy?
No, I'll be quiet. I'll sit here in third wheel for a little bit.
All right,
because
sounds good.
Jesse still hasn't called me, and somebody in the post show last time had asked about whatever new shoes I got, and I'm gonna show you.
I had those ready.
Oh, are those Jordans?
Yeah, these are OG1 black toes.
Dude.
So they just dropped, and we've got the OG1 coming up from Union on the 27th that I hope to get.
What do those things run for?
These are 180
Wow.
retail.
What do they run for?
And how readily available are your size 8s?
They don't run at all. They sit on the shelf.
What's that?
They don't run at all. They sit on the shelf.
Yeah, no.
Mine don't ever go out, Jake. And of course, I showed you the Trump shoes, right?
Yeah.
Somebody had asked about those.
Did he make gold ones of those? I don't remember.
I don't even know
Never
who
worn.
you are anymore.
Numbered. All right, I'll be quiet.
Just so you
now.
guys know,
Third
this
wheel.
was not Andy. Like when we were growing up, like that. I never knew him as a shoe guy. All right.
Well, no, it's because I can now have shoes. I couldn't have them growing up. Neither could you. We grew up poor,
we
and
did
that's
grow up
just
poor.
the way it is. So.
I know, it was the way it was. There you go. A lot of winning.
Nice.
No winning.
All right. Our next segment's brought to you by Warren Wessel, Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. This is a quick segment here. An anti-grassroots bill that was moving through the House and Senate, sponsored by Dwayne Quam of the Minnesota House and Mark Horan and Jeff Howe in the Senate, is pretty much on its deathbed since Action for Liberty started reporting. What's the story behind this, Jesse?
Yeah, so I mean, we had talked about it before, but this was a bill that was, like you say, going to crush the endorsement process by moving up the schedule. It was going to realign the election calendar, and that way it would completely nullify the voice and abilities of the grassroots to be able to insert their own voices in there. It was going to move Minnesota to a primary-only system, even though they want to deny that that's what it actually was going to do. That was definitely the direction that they were trying to take things, and it was because of the pressure from the grassroots. It was because of the pressure from people just like you guys who had reached out to these senators and representatives. That's the reason why they took their names off, and they want to. They have all these excuses for after the fact. This is the type of bill that should have never been introduced in the first place, and the fact that they were behind it in the first place tells you just about everything you need to know about them.
All right, and we got a comment from Mark Horan, the Senate author, on Action for Liberty's Facebook page. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and read that, Dawson. I think it's a C1. Look at the comment section here. All right, where is it?
Right there.
Yeah, second one down. You know what? I better open this on mine.
Do you want me to read it, or do you guys?
Do you want? Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you read it?
It's pretty long.
It's an essay.
Yeah.
This isn't a kill the grassroots movement. It's a discussion about how we can modify the endorsement process to allow our statewide candidates a longer ramp up to the primary and general election. The March proposal Jeff Howe dropped would require us to explore how we could endorse our candidates a year before the general election, all while preserving the grassroots organizations we have. Our candidates would have more time to prepare for any primary challenges, and in total, a full year to ramp up to the general election. This requires out-of-the-box thinking. Let's explore it and stop claiming it's a threat to grassroots organizing, because it's not. This would also require our candidates to declare, engage, and build their campaign apparatus much earlier than today's status quo. The second is my bill with a May primary. Although easier to accomplish, does give our candidates almost a full 6 months from primary to general election. The change would require us to back up caucus a month. This would be minimal change from today's organizing, but also equally limited value, but still better than today's environment.
Okay, this is why I don't think what he's saying is sincere, because
the very first thing he says is a lie. It's a discussion. No, this isn't about a discussion. Right. This is a bill that you are proposing that would change the statutes. It would change the law. So it's not a discussion. This is a bill that you are proposing. So let's, if you just want to discuss this ability to change the date, that would be one thing. You didn't do that, Mark. You proposed a bill.
Well, here's the other thing. If he's being sincere about it, then you got to move the state caucuses too, right?
Right.
Because this bill didn't have anything to the state precinct caucuses. Mm-hmm. So in other words, it would just neuter the endorsement process. Because remember, people are still going to their caucus in February, and it was a March primary.
Right.
Is that right?
And, he can claim that's not his intent, but that's what it did.
But yeah, that's exactly
what he was going to do. So, what are we to believe, that either Mark Coran is lying or he's stupid? I guess he can choose which one he is.
Right.
I made up a word for that, Jesse. I call them Lydiatrons. They're liars, idiots, and morons. So instead of calling them all three, I just call them Lydiatrons.
Lydiatrons. Okay, got it. There you go. Here's the other thing that really is stupid about this. Okay, I know from doing candidate recruitment in the past that a very highly productive member of our society who we should want in office looks at the current timetable of running for office and goes, I can't commit that long out. Mm-hmm. And so leave it to a politician, a guy, and Cran's been there for, 8 years now, something like that?
Yeah, something like
he
that.
initially took out Sean Nenow in a
He ran for chair before,
primary.
didn't he?
What's that?
Didn't he run for chair of the party?
Yeah, he did run for chair. Mm-hmm. Leave it to a politician to want to extend the window of the election season, where normal, highly productive members already can't do it. It's too long. Right. Now, who's going to do it but just more swamp creatures?
Right.
Literally, that's all they care about.
JL Jess makes the same point. Some people can't commit to running a whole year before an election. This is BS. I'm so happy to hear that this bill has been scrapped. Exactly. Most normal people, they aren't living their lives where politics is the number one concern every moment of the day. So if you're forcing people to have to make that their number one concern if they want to be able to run for office, it screws people up. It protects the establishment, like Mark Coran.
So the good thing is, in the House, Dwayne Quam has taken it out of committee, and so essentially I think he's killed the bill himself.
And also, one last thing. If Mark Coran thinks it's such a good bill still, why did he take his name off of it? Mark Coran is no longer listed as an author on this thing, but he's sitting there defending it still. That tells you the kind of person he is. He's saying one thing, doing another. He has taken his name off of this bill. He's no longer a co-author on this, but he still wants to defend it. It's unbelievable.
Were you going to say something, Andy?
No, Jesse's right. I mean, he's right. And the winners of this, by the way, and I would love to see who supports it, but the winners of this are the political consultants. That's who wins.
Oh,
because they get to start sooner, and they get to get paid more.
Right.
Just to quickly pull up the C3. I was just fact checking you because I didn't remember that was the case, but you're right.
And it makes it more expensive for people to have to run too, because then you have to compete in a primary rather than just going to the endorsing convention, earning the support of the locals.
See, it does show that
it becomes so much harder for your average person to run if you extend that season, because they do have to pay so much more for it that it just becomes overwhelming.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see, it does literally say on the 24th, the author that was stricken was Mark Coran. So apparently he just gets on bills that are just discussions, not actually serious.
Yeah. So he started the discussion and then didn't think it was worthwhile to continue, obviously, because he took his name off the bill. I mean, this guy is just so full of it.
It's just politics there. All right, this last segment's brought to you by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to buy a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com. I added this last minute, Jesse. This wasn't even discussed in our pre-show planning meeting. But have you seen this? So, of course, you guys know there are two tries right now by Republicans out in Washington, D.C. to put forward a budget. One was in the Senate by Lindsey Graham. That's pretty much been killed by Trump saying that he likes the House version more. The House version get this, increases the budget deficit. They're trying to woo over. They can't afford to lose two House members on the Republican side. They can't afford to lose that. So they're trying to woo over the likes of Victoria Sparks and Thomas Massey, amongst some others. Tim Burkett, I believe, is also saying that he's opposed to it. This is this happened this morning. This is Thomas Massey responding to a media scrum here about the bill. By the way, this is, I don't know if you've seen this video. It's really interesting. And then it's got literally Mike Johnson walking right by them at the end of this. Go ahead and play this. This is Thomas Massey from Kentucky.
Yeah. Can you just talk to us? Are you still a no? Is there anything?
They convinced me in there. I'm a no.
Is there anything?
Look what, let me, their own numbers. If the Republican plan passes under the rosiest assumptions, which aren't even true, we're going to add $328 billion to the deficit this year. We're going to add $295 billion to the deficit the year after that, and $242 billion to the deficit after that, under the rosiest assumptions. Why would I vote for that?
So are you solidly a no?
Yeah, they convinced me. I was a lean no until this meeting. Now I'm a no.
This no confirmed.
This is a no.
Why? Why?
They're talking points. Look. These are not something I made up. This is the leadership's talking points. It adds $328 billion to the deficit. It adds $295 billion to the deficit the year after that. The only way they get to this magic thing where it's not going to kill our country is 5 years from now, they imagine that 2.5% growth accumulates, and that even right here they say they're going to cap discretionary spending. You think we're going to cap discretionary spending and then spend at the rate of inflation after that? That has never happened. So their assumptions are wrong, but even if you take their assumptions at face value, they told us in there they're going to increase the deficit in 2025 by $328 billion. And I've been here long enough. I've been here 12 years, so I've seen a 10-year plan or two come all the way to 10 years. Under Boehner, we had these 10-year plans. Under Ryan, we had these 10-year plans. Anything past the third year never happens. Thanks.
Mr. Speaker, will the budget resolution
Are you planning to move it tonight?
Yes, that's the plan. Yes.
So there you go. You're Mike Johnson saying the plan is to vote on it tonight. That's good enough, Dawson. Andy, I don't think you can hear the video when we're playing it. So essentially, Thomas Massey is saying that the Republican plan, and once again, like a full continuing resolution, not just a Republican budget. Of course, part of that's procedural because they don't want filibuster by the Democrats in the Senate, but is to add $328 billion to the budget deficit this year. By the way, we're running about a $2 trillion budget deficit already. So that means that will be tackled on the debt. So they're going to increase the budget deficit this year. Then next year, $295 billion added to that deficit. It's not until year 5 where there's actually some cuts that are starting to be made. And as Thomas Massey stated, he's been there long enough to see these 10-year plans play out. And there never ends up being any cuts. We all know that here, right? There never ends up being any cut. They want to sell you on this 10-year plan. Now, here's the thing. Andy, you and I have known each other, once again, many decades. You know me. I'm a fiscal hawk, right? Let's just put – for hypothetical sake, Jake Duesenberg is a U.S. congressman, and I go out there with Thomas Massey, who would probably be the guy that I would associate with the most. But, you know, there's some other – guys up there like Eli Crane that
very few
seem very impressive. I think there'd be one principle overwhelming in my time as a congressman, and that would be never add a penny to the debt, because I look at this as a threat to my children and the future of our country. I can't imagine ever voting for an imbalanced budget. If there is some wiggle room there, it's that I really believe that by, let's say they cut the deficit in half, so I'm voting for more debt, but I'm still voting for less than it was originally. I could then vote for that because if I believe them, the deficit will be eventually cut and we'll start paying down the debt, okay? in this case, there is not just continue to add to the debt, but they're increasing the amount that they're adding to the debt. Okay, so I was thinking about that. That would be my overarching principle. I think that's a very pure principle. The issue here is they can't afford to lose any Republicans. So what's going to end up happening here, it seems to me, that we're in some really weird showdown that's going to fall flat on the face of Donald Trump, who I want to support and make sure that he's successful, but I'm competing against that principle. And it's going to fall flat on his face, and to the point where everyone's going to start blaming him. They're going to go after Trump because he's ineffective, because Republicans won't pass a budget.
Well, he would be ineffective
I'm
if
kind
they
of
can't pass a budget, right?
Would say that again?
He would be ineffective if Republicans can't pass a budget.
Well, I could argue that, but a government shutdown isn't the worst thing in the world. But yes,
No,
that would be
what's
how
wrong
people
when
would talk.
government shuts down? I mean, nothing's wrong with it.
Right. Well, you and I are in a minority position on that. At least the media makes us believe that.
Because people don't understand. If I can just real quick, Jake, you have your mandatory spending, and then you have your discretionary spending. Mandatory, we never shut that down. That's your Social Security, your military, your veterans, your school. That is, by law, you have to pay that, okay? So that just automatically happens. Everything else comes from the 12 appropriations bills, which is all considered discretionary. There's no legal requirement to spend it.
Right.
So when government shuts down, it's just the discretionary money.
Right. Right. Which is, one of the big cost drivers is the mandated spending. But either way, it's going to be shut down, and it's going to be blamed on Trump. They're going to act as if he's ineffective. I can't imagine caving on those very important principles, though. And I can't fault Thomas Massey, assuming him and I are allied on those principles. What the hell do you do? You've been a chief of staff for a congresswoman up on the Capitol Hill. So
yeah,
what do you do?
I mean, look, at this point in at any point in time, I've always said I'd rather die on principle than win on compromise. And this is something you don't compromise on. And so if government shuts down, it shuts down. But this is when we need real leaders to stand up and say, I'm willing to shut it down, and I'm willing to just stop this insanity unless I get what I want. And, when you give in, I remember we shut government down. The longest government shutdown was under John Boehner. John Boehner and Barack Obama, and Obama tried to make it painful and whatever. And the Republicans ended up caving. If government shuts down, it's already shut down. Nothing more bad can happen. Let people see that their life will go on without this discretionary stuff. And stick to your guns.
Remember, they call that the Ted Cruz shutdown because he was a vocal opponent in the Senate.
Yep.
And we were told that Republicans will be blamed, and then they picked up more seats in the Senate, which is just that's one of those false talking points by establishment. The reason that I was thinking this way, I did not vote for Donald Trump for budgetary issues, which is crazy because the biggest issue for me is government debt and the budget. However, I didn't think he was any better necessarily than Kamala Harris, except for as was it Billy that wrote this or Tucker wrote about how the government can raise revenue or get more revenue, which means they could grow the economy. So Trump would be better than Kamala in that, but he's not a deficit hawk. He's not been good on that. So I didn't vote on that issue. But I want him to solve that issue. You know what I'm saying? But if no one would have guessed in November that literally the Republicans would basically have, essentially they have a 1-seat majority. There's 2 vacancies right now, so it's 218 to 215. It's not a large majority. I'm sorry, two-person majority. So it's not a big majority that they have, right? So it does seem like with the Thomas Masseys and the Victoria Sparts and Timber Cat and whoever else would be joining these guys, that they're going to be in a position and they're going to be encouraged to really abandon some of those principles.
And does it look like Democrats are all going to vote no?
Yeah, of course they're going to vote no on this thing. So, and then the Republican establishment and the moderates definitely want a bill like this because it keeps the gravy train going, right? Which is the other big problem. Like I make the argument, government's way too big out there. So we need to defund it.
And if you remember too, Jake, Republicans this time around, actually 4 years ago, they relaxed the rules. They had a ban on earmarks, which are, oh my God, like if you look at this, it's just ripe for fraud and abuse. And Now they've changed it so that you can request earmarks and get them as long as you post it on your website that nobody goes to.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's just what I have no faith in the majority of our Republicans it breaks my heart that I'm hoping that we do. I love this close majority because it gives a handful of people some real power to shut this down. Michelle Bachmann would shut it down. I guarantee you, her, Steve King, Louis Gohmert, if they were still there, they wouldn't budge. And we just need a couple of people now. We need to encourage a couple of people to just stand their ground.
Yeah, well, they're going to probably go up against Trump, and that's the sad thing, Jesse, is I think Trump's going to start going after Massey like he did during COVID for a principled position. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong by that, but I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I might have to be very critical of Trump on that.
I would be too, and if Trump needs to get on the people who aren't Republicans, who are acting like Democrats and who are requesting these obscene earmarks. Just to tell you how obscene these are, my member of Congress, Derek Van Orden, he campaigned against earmarks and then he requested $40 million, more than any other member in the state of Wisconsin combined. And he got 30 million of them. And you know what they were for? Wastewater treatment plants. People in Alabama are going to pay for people in West Salem to take a poop, literally. And that's not okay. That is not a role of the federal government. And that's where all of these come from.
Razzle Dazzle says, I just emailed Emmer to oppose Johnson's budget proposal. Of course, he won't listen to us. Yeah, because he will be in charge of whipping the votes for it.
Right.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about this and some other things on the top of my head in the post show. If you are a premium subscriber, join us in the post show on Locals after this. If you're not, you can sign up by going to truthhurtsnews.com and clicking on support us, or on the top of Rumble clicking on join us.
And when you join Jake's subscription, you instantly become 93% more beautiful, 73% more intelligent, and 61% of all Americans will believe you've read a book.
Yes. I will let you know, though, we do assume genders in our post shows. So if you are part of the post show and we don't know your name and it's very gender neutral, we will make an assumption, okay? And we get it wrong often, okay? So just so you guys know that in the post show, you have been forewarned. Thank you to our great sponsors, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. If you're buying a home, go to johngaltmortgage.com. And thank you to Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. We'll be back on Thursday with another great show for everyone else that's a premium subscriber. See you in 1 minute. Take care.